Hello, BookTube. I've been minding my own business, peacefully, unobtrusively, the way I am. I had been to the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston many times in the last week. It's a used bookstore in downtown Boston. I've brought many of you there. I've talked about it endlessly. It's a wonderful place. I love it. Go back a long way with the staff. Love the turnover so that you never know what you're going to see on the buying table or on the shelves inside the shop. And there's also a sale lot next door to the shop that's bargain books. Thousands of them. Thousands of $1, $3, and $5 books. Not in any order except by price and changed all the time. So it's a wonderful place to go, but even wonderful places to go, you can overdo it. And I did. I was going every day except for days when it was raining because the sale lot next door is open to the elements. The carts are wheeled in and out or closed over, boarded over every night. So that's, for those of you who are new to the channel who might be hearing me talk about this used bookstore and talking about it as if it were an open-air fair, that's the reason why. If it's bad weather, I don't go to the Brattle because I've lost literally one half of the reason why I would go. But I'd been to the Brattle many times recently. And the last time I went, I made a video. Of course, I make a Brattle book haul whenever I go, and I said that I would not be back to the Brattle this week. And if you check your calendar, you will see that this is midweek. This is only one day after I said that. I was minding my own business. I was intent on not going back to the Brattle, and then I was taunted on multiple levels by multiple people. A poor, weak-willed little daffodil like myself, how am I supposed to resist that sort of thing? Aaron Facer, for instance, the original Fawns at Origo, the original problem of causing me to do all these Brattle book hauls. Well, we were shirtless Skyping, and he mentioned that if I didn't go back to the Brattle before the end of the week, I was a cuck, which he pronounces as cook. Unless all these times that he says that, he's actually calling me a cook. If so, boy oh boy, did that insult fly wide of the mark. Cooking food is such a human thing to do. You humans have a weird obsession about it. I was raised and socialized by people who, if they had their druthers, would have their food not even be dead when they're eating it. So I'm not a cook, no. But I didn't want to be a cuck either, so that got under my skin. I thought, well, he's just one person. And then I was drunk dialing Hannah at Hannah's Books, and she said that I ought to go back to the Brattle if I know what's good for me, and added a stipulation. Even Aaron, at his soft-spoken, most tyrannical, did not add a stipulation, but Hannah added a stipulation. Drawling there into the phone, she said, not only must you go back to the Brattle, but you must buy some Eudora Welty. Who puts these kind of conditions on an innocent little booktuber? And then there was the barrage of mail hauls, the barrage of book hauls for people who don't buy a book in a year. All of a sudden, they're all ganging up on me in my booktube subscription queue. There was Elizabeth at Bouquins Books, who did, I will link to these haul videos. She did an incredible haul video where her parents are cleaning out house, and her father decided just take whatever you want, take whatever books you want. And she found a massive vein of Book of the Month Club type subscriptions of old hardcovers from 50 years ago that are all in beautiful condition. Just all these vintage hardcovers in beautiful condition. Oh, amazing. It was amazing. Of course, those books were extremely well known to me. So every time she held one up and said, I don't know anything about this, I've never heard of this book, I was yelling pedantic clarifications at the screen. But I emailed her and said, well, surely just because you did a book haul doesn't mean I should do a book haul. I mean, you're not actually making me do a book haul, are you? And she said that if I didn't do a book haul, I was a beta male. And she said it in French, where it's extra cutting, because I don't make beta males in France. So again, I was thinking, okay, well, it's Aaron, and it's Hannah, and it's Elizabeth, but the book hauls didn't stop. There was Liam's Lyceum. Somebody sent him boxes and boxes of neat, really interesting science fiction and fantasy. So I emailed him, and he said that if I didn't go there, that I didn't go to the Brattle, I was low T. I don't want to be low T. And then there was Grammaticus Books. You know that if there's trouble on BookTube, You're not going to have to look far to find Grammaticus Books. And he also did a book haul. So I shirtless Skyped him and said, well, surely this doesn't mean that I have to go back to the Brattle when I've been there just 2 days ago, and I was there 5 days out of 4. And he said, no, you do. Otherwise, you'll never be Gramtastic. And he also added a stipulation. I said, oh, come on. You can't make me go to the Brattle. And he said, yes, I can. And not only that, but I insist that you get some Lynn Carter. Because he just had Lynn Carter in the video that I will link. People not only taunting poor little me from all ends, but also putting conditions on what I was going to get at the Brattle. So I went to the Brattle. It was a nice, clear, mild morning, the type of morning that prescribes, it presentiments heat, actual warmth. But it wasn't that way in the morning. So I went, and the sale lot was already laid out. It was largely empty. It was full of great stuff. The shop was full of great stuff. And I had a blast. I had an absolute blast. And I found a pile of books. A pile of books. So let's go through them, shall we? This purely peer-pressured Brattle book haul. I should start with the Lynn Carter. I was ordered to get Lynn Carter, so I did. I found a DAW mass market paperback of Lost Worlds, with a woman with a sword, a bloodied sword, riding a centaur who seems upset. And she's holding a severed head, but he still has his head. And I look at this cover, and I list off all of those items, and all I think is paging Dr. Freud. Good Lord. But this is a collection of... some lovely artwork. These old DAW paperbacks, I tell you. This thing is from 1980, and it has just a bunch of Lynn Carter stuff. It's an anthology of Lynn Carter shorter works. But I also found Tower at the Edge of Time. He is... that is not practical, except when you're in full melee. Having 2 swords and no free hand is not practical. Remember what we learned in the Aubrey and Maturin series by Patrick O'Brien. 1 hand for you, and 1 hand for the ship. It was Thane who crossed the abyss of the ages and stood on the very brink of eternity, who found the secret of the time treasure, who saw and laughed and came back sane from that place beyond the universe where no man had ever been before him, and where none should ever come again. This was the ending. But the beginning was the city of Zulthira on the planet Daikun. The restless outworlder was Thane of the 2 swords. Yeah. You see them. A man of blood and steel, a man of strange powers strangely acquired. And believe it or not, there were 2 different covers. There were 2 different editions of this book. I grabbed the one that is still in absolutely perfect condition. No idea how, but it's in perfect. It will certainly take a read. I think that in his video, Grammaticus Books was wondering aloud if perhaps Garb August is a good time for Lynn Carter. I don't think that Lynn Carter would, at least when he was a younger man, I don't think he would have objected to that at all. I think he would have got a very deep belly laugh out of him. I think he would have been proud to be part of Garb August. So I may read these for Garb August. I found a Lynn Carter anthology. I found another copy of Flashing Swords #2. So this will have something by Lynn Carter, because I'm pretty sure that he indulged in what Steve considers to be the #1 sin of any anthologist, which is to include your own work. There are other anthologies out there. Let them include your work. Don't include your own. But I'm sure that he did. Let's see. He wrote an introduction, Flashing Swords and Black Magicians, which I have read. I know that I have another copy of this. I have at some point had another copy of this. I really like that. We also have The Rug and the Bull by L. Sprague de Camp, Jade Man's Eyes by Michael Moorcock, Toads of Grimmerdale by Andre Norton, and Ghoul's Garden by John Jakes. So Lynn Carter only wrote the introduction. That's fine. And again, this is in perfect condition. This will certainly take a read. And then finally, The Black Star by Lynn Carter, which I have not read. How's that for a cover? Can we even tell what's going on here? There is a wizard. He has a sword. There are monkey-faced bestial creatures who are grappling with what appears to be a falling stair. The stair seems to be collapsing. And all the rest of these creatures are buck naked except for this guy, who has some sort of metal thong. That seems like a bad idea. And the Nordic hero, I don't know if you can make it out on this cover, he is, well, he's not missed an upper body day in quite some time, has he? He's in chains, but I don't know if you'll be able to make it out. He also has a thong bikini on. And he doesn't look like he's unhappy looking at them. God knows what this wizard's going to do. If he is a wizard, he has a sword. Let's see what this is. It was a rarer and more beautiful and more precious than any piece of mineral, and its dark glory outshone the lights of the heavens. The gods had wrought it in the country of the immortals, and no other thing like it had ever been upon the earth. No emperor could hold the throne without the black star, and now it was missing. The evil green-robed one, who had usurped the throne, would use his darkest powers to reclaim it, and the young warrior fleeing across the embattled land with his beautiful lady to save this treasure of all the world would know the torments of the damned. All right, I guess we get some of our answers here. This was a 95-cent paperback. When? 1973. I would have got it even if I hadn't been under orders by Grammaticus Books to buy some Lynn Carter. I would not have passed up that cover. Then the last two, not only the last two mass market paperbacks, but the last two paperbacks of any kind. I just loaded myself down with 200 pounds of hardcovers. But the last two paperbacks that I got are Agatha Christie. And I got them because of this particular cover artist, which I think one of you actually found. One of you actually, I think, figured out who this cover artist is. This cover artist has been cropping up in my library tour. And I just happened to find two Agatha Christie murder mysteries with this same illustrator. They're in perfect condition as paperbacks, so I'll take them, absolutely. The first one is The Moving Finger. And this is what I mean. This artist, if one of you found his name, please remind me. I have no idea where that comment is. But this is what this artist tends to do, which is to load the cover with all sorts of items from the story. A packet of letters, a gun, a cane with a snake handle, a skeleton, SOS, a Ming vase. And I don't have much Agatha Christie in paperback, but if I could have all of it with this cover illustrator, I would do it. And then the other one is The Boomerang Clue. The same thing, you've got all the different elements of the crime here, all assembled together, always on a plain background. So I found two of those. They will join my very limited collection of Agatha Christie paperbacks. I'm organizing the feng shui as I go here, so pardon. Then we have a weird little minor controversial classic of the Second World War. These hardcovers are all over the place when it comes to history. Many wars represented. This is Hugh Trevor Roper was a Danish scholar. A Danish scholar who was commissioned to go to Germany in the rubble when the rubble was still fuming in the wake of the war and analyze what had happened to the downfall of Nazi Germany. And he wrote a book called The Last Days of Hitler, which I have never seen in hardcover. I've had this innumerable times in mass market paperback and trade paperback. But I found this hardcover for $1. And I know that The Last Days of Hitler by Trevor Roper has come in for its share of bare-knuckle bruising from World War II historians. One famously said there's a howler on every page. He's been lambasted as being a good scholar who is completely out of his element and doesn't know what he's writing, doesn't know what he's talking about. I myself have never found that to be substantially true, and also it's, to me, largely irrelevant, because I love how he writes. I love how this author writes. So it's not a big thing, and it's something that I would want to have. I want to have a copy on my World War II shelf. Then we move to the American Civil War. This is Clifford Doughty, who I've already mentioned on this channel. He's a good writer, very good writer. And this is his book on Gettysburg. I won't say designed to get my goat, because it wasn't designed to get my goat. This came out in 1958. This is Death of a Nation. And it's the story of Robert E. Lee and his men at Gettysburg. But it is really a study of Gettysburg. It's a story of the Battle of Gettysburg that concentrates on the third day, July the 3rd. but covers the whole battle and also the broader context, hence the title. It's the death of a slave nation. It's the death of a slaveholding nation. But this is the death of a nation here, I believe. It's been a long time since I read this book, probably in the mid-1960s. I believe the death of a nation here that is being coyly teased is the death of the Confederacy, a thoroughly corrupt nation whose foremost goal and foremost identifying principle was keeping black people as slaves. No ground at all. It just doesn't fly for anyone who wants to try to say that it was about states' rights, that the war was about anything other than slavery. Just read the Constitution of the Confederacy and make it plain as day. I'm hoping that that's the sense I get when I reread this book, which I found in a hardcover just fine by me, a perfect condition thing there that with somebody who already put a covering over it. I'm hoping that there isn't any sense here that it's the death of the United States that happened at Gettysburg. But certainly a death did happen at Gettysburg because Robert E. Lee acted incomprehensibly at Gettysburg. Who knows how much it shortened the war, but it's still incomprehensible. It's one of those rare things, much like Hitler, for instance, at the end of World War II, tried the Ardennes offensive. He tried the Battle of the Bulge. Tried that to break out to the nearest navigable river and maybe to the sea. Utterly insane. An utterly insane thing to do. Same thing with Gettysburg. Lee tried to invade the North. For whatever reason, for whatever length of time, for whatever strategy to imperil Washington or get the heat off Richmond or whatever. Still insane to do. And that always has a kind of you can't look away interest factor to it. Then we'll move. Okay, so we did the World War II and we did the American Civil War. Now we'll move on to World War I. And this is by Rod Pascal, and it is the defeat of Imperial Germany in a hardcover. And this is part of a series of books. What's it called? Major Battles and Campaigns. It's edited by John Eisenhower, and he did a great job with these. Almost every book that I've read in this series, I haven't read them all, but all the ones that I've read in this series have been great. They're not long, but they're terrific studies of their subject. They all look like this. They'll have one picture at the bottom of the front cover, and the lines really do it. That line separating the author from the title on the spine. Usually when I find these things, they are in heavily marked up and annotated trade paperbacks that are ready to pop apart into 10 pieces. Because for a long time, these were used in schools. They're very good for schools because they're very readable, concise books on their subjects. Right now, I think I only have one other one in this series on the battles of the American Revolution. I was happy to find this one because I read this years and years ago. When did this come out originally? I didn't read it originally. I read it as a trade paperback. 1989. So I probably read it in the 90s in a trade paperback and really enjoyed it. Got rid of it, or maybe the trade paperback fell apart, so I was happy to find the hardcover. Okay, then we're going to move away from war for just a bit. We're going to move to a book. This is in pretty rough shape. I don't think I'm ever going to find it when it's not in rough shape. I've only ever had a copy of this once before, and it was destroyed by dogs, but oh my. Ordinarily in my life, when I've had dogs destroy a book, I take it philosophically. I have the Brattle Bookshop. There's an endless fire hose of books there. I'm going to see it again. The Brattle will provide. No matter what it is, if you destroy it, it's not worth getting mad at my boys. It's not worth getting mad at them over something that they don't know is wrong. And that they, immediately after the fact, when I'm upset, they'll know that I didn't like it, but they won't remember that. So I made a point of being very nonchalant about it. And that once you do that, once you learn how to take 30,000 steps back and be just philosophical about something that you wish hadn't happened, you can make a habit out of that. That is a habit like anything else. You can build that to be really strong so that you don't ever fly off the handle anymore, so that you don't ever get ridiculously, theatrically upset over what is ultimately a trifle. That habit stood me in good stead many, many times over the years, over the decades of having dogs. That habit has stood me in good stead. It's completely in abeyance now. I should say. It's completely in abeyance now. For one of the very rare instances in my life. Right now, I have only one dog. And for the first time in my life, I have a terrier. And for the first time in my life, I have a dog who's 10 pounds. My little miniature schnauzer, Frida, is tiny. I can easily cup her in the palm of one hand, and I could carry her on my shoulder for 10 miles without feeling strain at all. And for the first time in my life, minus only 2 examples who were beagles, and they were very old, I have a dog who has no interest in misbehaving. Frida has no interest in misbehaving. She doesn't chew things. She doesn't hide things. She isn't... Granted, she will nibble on the fingers of guests once she's comfortable with them, but it's her house. She's free to do that. I sometimes do that myself. But she has no interest in destroying bookcases or shelves or books. But the last copy that I had of this book was destroyed by dogs. And it was a rare example where it really did bother me. Because I wasn't sure how long it would be until it showed up at the Brattle again. Turns out it was a long time. But I found it. I found it again. The Brattle will provide. It's in rough shape. I'll clean it up as best I can. It's got ingrained dirt all over it. And it's no dust jacket. And the top of the spine is frittering away because a lot of people pull their books off shelves the wrong way. But this is Recollections of Full Years by Nell Taft. By William Howard Taft's wife. This was her. See, there. That's what I mean. That there is going to have to be fixed as much as I can. And I think there is also a kind of content. Oh, there she is. Look at that. Oh my. Oh, this was the Middleton Public Library, and it was removed. There she is. I think there's a kind of thing, one of you probably knows better than I do, a kind of covering that you can get for a naked hardcover. It just sort of static clings to it, front and back. I'm pretty sure there is such a thing. I don't know how I would look for it on Amazon, but this is her memoir of, let's see, will there be pictures? There is the Taft bed in the civilian governor's house in the Philippines. There's a lot of this book is about Taft's time serving as civilian governor of the Philippines, which was pretty dramatic. It deserves a book or a stage play of its own, because the military governor of the Philippines did not want a civilian governor showing up. And if a civilian governor showed up and started saying, well, okay, I know that American soirees, that these big dinner parties that we have been racially segregated from now on, but they're not going to be racially segregated now. No, we're not here to rule over the Filipinos. They can come here and enjoy the food and the hospitality, and I'm going to treat them as the same way I treat you, and so is everyone else here. If that had ever been true before, there was some sort of medieval, plantation, it's over with now. The military governor very much wanted to ignore that. And Taft only took the job by insisting to the president that he would only go if he had authority over the military. Not to be a military governor, but that his word outranked theirs. And that was made perfectly clear. And Nell Taft writes a lot about their time in the Philippines, including a great anecdote, something that she would tell in trusted company. She wasn't all that pleasant a person, but she let her hair down in trusted company and could be a wonderful, spirited storyteller. Very much wanted to have the floor. She wasn't interested in hearing any other storytellers, but still, she could be, in private, she could be friendly. When she knew you, she could be friendly. And she used to tell the story all the time about how there was a gigantic hurricane that swept through the Philippines, and William Howard Taft slept through it. He was so comfy that he just slept through the hurricane and woke up. What's that you say? Why are all those trees down on the lawn? And this book takes on an extra poignance because she had a major medical emergency virtually as soon as Taft was elected president. A massive stroke that changed her life, changed his life. And this doesn't go with it. This is a Victorian work. This was written in 1917. So basically an Edwardian style work. So it draws a curtain of discretion over a lot of those blatantly personal subjects, but nevertheless, it's fascinating. The full story here is not in the book. The full story of how this was written, who helped her to write it, who came up with the organization, all that stuff, that behind the scenes stuff. I don't know that any of that survives at all. I would love, for instance, I'm the only one in the world who would love it, but I would love an annotated edition of this book. But it's a remarkable primary source for the Taft years. It's a remarkable insight. Some of these stories are a remarkable insight into Nell Taft, even though not always the insight that she wanted. You can read between the lines in a lot of these stories, and it makes good reading, as it well should, considering who actually wrote the book. But it's fascinating. It belongs on my Taft shelf. I've wanted it there ever since my boys destroyed it. That was a tough one. We had to go on a walk for me to work out the demons of that irritation, because I was upset with them, and they knew that, but they had no idea why. They had no idea why. And I wasn't about to try and explain to them why. I didn't want them walking around on eggshells wondering, well, all these things that he seems to care about, should we not touch them, even though they smell like food or are eminently shareable? If you tear apart a book into 100 pieces, you can share it with everybody. So I'm glad that I found it again. There was a biography of Nell Taft, I don't know, 30 years ago, something like that was not good. It was strange and overfamiliar and weird and glib in ways that it had some worth to it, but I keep wishing that she could have another biography. It's not likely to happen, but still, it's a touching subject. The little vignettes that some people recorded of walking into the Taft's private quarters in the White House, and the president was there. He'd had a long, hard day. For him, that would be about 2 hours and 15 minutes of concentration. He'd had a long, hard day wrangling with the head of the Senate or the head of the House of Representatives or whatnot. And when these people would come back to the private quarters expecting an exhausted Taft, they would find him perched over a little table, very slowly and very patiently trying to teach his beloved wife how to relearn her letters. It's never been fully accredited. It's never been given the depth that it deserves, because it hasn't had many opportunities to be given the depth that it deserves, because we're not exactly up to our eyeballs in Taft biographies. But nevertheless, what I'm trying to say is I'm overjoyed to find the book. And you can see this needs fixing as much as I can fix it. And this needs cleaning. I think that the fact that this is dimmer up here is dirt rather than the gold gilt being worn off. So I'm pretty sure that I can fix this up quite a bit, and then, of course, reread it. Then we have another one of my vicious preconditions, the one this time imposed by Hannah at Hannah's Books, which is, of course, to find Eudora Welty. And I did. I found the classic hardcover of her collected stories, which, to give Hannah her due, I don't know how she knew it, but the minute I saw this, I realized that I don't have a copy, that I'd given away my hardcover, my last hardcover of this. This really is one of the two signature 20th century American short story collections in the American market. The big brown book of the collected Eudora Welty and the big red book of John Cheever. And to this day, I do not understand why Harcourt Brace Jovanovich did not bring this out as a big, fat, brown mass market paperback. The big, fat, red mass market paperback of the collected stories of John Cheever sold like crazy. It was everywhere. It was everywhere. It sold like the Dickens. This would have too. But I don't, to the best of my knowledge, that never happened. And this has all of Eudora Welty's short stories. So in my heart, I was thanking Hannah. And then this popped out, which would have made this a must-buy even if Hannah hadn't bullied me into it. This envelope contains lovingly collected clipped reviews about Eudora Welty. Maureen Howard wrote the review of the collected stories of Eudora Welty in the New York Times Book Review in 1980. How incredible. And Eudora Welty also made the front cover. Incredible. And then there was also a feature story, The Making of a Writer, which was by her. They put this in here. And somebody collected all of this stuff and folded it neatly, and also a pure sign of a person after my own heart. They also trimmed them. You're not going to be able to make it out on camera, but when you pull these things out of the book review, they leave a ragged edge. Not too ragged if you're careful with it, but still ragged enough. And if you're diehard about this sort of thing, you will use scissors to trim that off, and also to trim the excess margins so that you can fold these things up nice and neatly to fit in the book. And this person not only did that for all of these things about Eudora Welty, but then put them in an envelope and stuck the envelope in the book. So I would have got this anyway. That is just, I am honored to have this. Someone loved this and put care into it, and now it's mine. So I will put a covering over it, and I'll not get rid of this edition. If somebody else sings me a sob story and wants to collect the stories of Eudora Welty, well, they show up often enough at the Brattle, so I can find another copy and keep this one. Then we will move to Sagalong, another booktube event, all about the sagas of the Icelanders, the Viking sagas. I found a Viking book that I have wanted forever. I had this as a mass market paperback a long time ago. It was a crappy mass market paperback. It was the only thing I could find. And it kept falling apart on me. I kept putting rubber bands on it because I never saw it anywhere else. I never saw it in any other format. It's not something that I see often at the Brattle Bookshop. And it's a great Viking book. It's a great history of the Vikings. It's by Farley Moat, and it's called West Viking. And I found this perfect condition hardcover that somebody already put a jacket on. So that's fantastic. This is all about the Vikings striking out west, going to the New World. And it's beautifully, beautifully written. Any of you who've read Farley Moat, that won't surprise you. So I was, what can I say? It's going to go in this room. I was overjoyed to find it. Then we'll move from, what did we do? We did World War II, then we did the American Civil War, then we did World War I. Now we'll move on to the American Revolution. I found a perfect condition copy of Charles Flood's Rise and Fight Again, his book about the early days of the Revolution, the decision to take up arms, the decision to make this a military conflict. This is terrifically written, and I haven't had this in so long. I had a copy of this ages ago. No idea what happened to it, no idea where it went. Happy to have it again. Then this next one is popular nature writing. It's a good example of a feature that happens at the Brattle often, which is that if you're out in the sale lot, you're only going to be limited by how much you can carry. You're not going to hit your spending limit before you hit your carrying limit, which is great. That's absolutely great. And it allows you to take a flyer on things. And this is something that I did not get this. I'm pretty sure I did not get this when it originally came out. This came out in 2009. And I don't think I got a copy. And I love the author. So I very much want the book. The author is Richard Ellis, and the book is On Thin Ice, The Changing World of the Polar Bear. And that's what this is about. It's about polar bears who are apex predators, but they're extremely specialized for life in the Arctic. And that the conditions of their specialization are vanishing. They are vanishing in real time. So we're not talking about how millions of years from now polar bears will need to adapt. We're talking about the end of this decade. At the end of this decade, there will be no ice caps on this planet. And the polar bears were built for that. They were built to hunt on the ice. They were built to blend in on the ice. They were built to survive in the waters that are sub-zero, that are sub-freezing. They were built to survive in this environment and reproduce in this environment. And that environment is going away far faster than they can evolve. So they're dying, and they're migrating, and they're adapting as best they can. And I imagine that the quick fix solution that nature and evolution will take will be a lot of interbreeding with Kodiak bears and grizzly bears, who have not adapted to a purely Arctic environment, and that might work. This was done in 2009, almost 20 years ago. So the situation is much, much worse than now. The last 4 years, there have been heat waves in the Arctic. And I don't mean, in the Arctic, this is what we call a heat wave when the temperature goes up to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean temperatures in the high 90s in the Arctic for days on end. That's major, major city and even county-sized glaciers are calving off into the ocean on a regular basis now. Things that even 60 years ago, geologists and hikers looked at them and thought, these are permanent. Even if the world undergoes a Milankovitch cycle warming, these will still be here. They'll retreat a little, but they won't just disappear. That is not true. And polar bears are the tip of the spear. They are, along with a handful of other animals, they are right in the crosshairs of that kind of change. And Ellis is a great writer. He's fantastic. I thought that I had all of his books, but I didn't have this one, and it was right there, and it was dirt cheap, so I grabbed it. Okay, then we'll move from the American Revolution back to World War I. I found Robert Asprey is a terrific, terrific writer. A lot of the stress here was on the quality of the prose rather than the subject matter. But he wrote a book, an indispensable book, on the German High Command in World War I. And that might sound like a very hunkered down and keyhole subject, but he is so good. He is such a good writer that this does not read that way at all. I had a trade paperback of this that was in terrible condition. Here is a new hardcover that somebody's already protected with a plastic dust jacket. Well worth a reread. So I grabbed it. I wonder if this is a picture of the author. Yes, it does. Hello there. There you go. Here's the author as an old man. This author is in this room. I don't know how easy it is going to be to find him. Can we pan just a little and see if we can find the author in here? It'd be just random luck if we could. No. He wrote a biography of Frederick the Great that is fantastic. So I'm happy to have this book. And then the final book here for this Brattle book. All these huge hardcovers I had to carry myself. The final one, maybe not such great writing. I don't know what's come over me here. This is the second time this has happened. I found another big hardcover collection of the occasional prose and critical essays of John Updike, a mid-century misogynist author who was completely talentless in his fiction. His fiction is completely talentless. It's dumb, awful, soiling. He was part of a relatively large cadre of such people, well over half a dozen such people, that I excoriated every time they had a new book. I excoriated. They were all awful. They were all on the same page in terms of their awfulness. But the whole time that those mid-century misogynists were writing books, most of them were also writing book reviews. You never get out of that. Once you get into that, you never really get out of that. You never really turn your back on it. And Updike did too. And I allowed my hatred, my contempt of his fiction to slop over onto his book reviews. But in the last 10 or 15 years, I've been softening that because the book reviews are sometimes really good. Which led me to get a big hardcover of his book, Odd Jobs, a collection of his book reviews. He had 5 or 6 book review collections. I got a big hardcover copy of Odd Jobs and could not explain why. Because, briefly, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, all of his stuff was reissued in the whole of it, fiction and nonfiction, was reissued in all these uniform trade paperbacks that are quite well made, including all of the nonfiction. So all of the critical class, he collected 5 or 6 volumes of his essays and prefaces and whatnot. Wrote regularly, reviewed regularly for the New York Times, for the New Yorker, and I have all of those trade paperbacks. I'm pretty sure I have them all. But today I found another collection of Updike, and this is a little bit more justifiable because I do not have one of those trade paperbacks of this. All I had was a ratty old trade paperback that wasn't part of that uniform set and had seen better days. I found it just a minute ago, or 2 hours ago, or whenever this video started. I found the copy of this thing. The book is Due Considerations, and there's our author acting all serene and contemplative, utterly ridiculous, just utterly ridiculous. The kind of mind frame you need to have to put a picture of yourself like this on your cover. But this is a big thing with deckled edges, and it's in perfect condition, and I got it back here, and feeling a little bit soiled, a little bit sorry that I got it, and then I realized, no, you want this. Whether it's a hardcover or not, you want this. I'm not going to make a point of buying all of John Updike in hardcover, all of his nonfiction in hardcover, but I don't have a uniform trade paperback of this, and the trade paperback that I do have, I can barely use it. So I'm glad to have this. Even if it's John Updike, I'm glad to have it. And there you go. That was a browbeaten, peer-pressured Brattle book haul. complete with, let's do the rundown here. Let's see if we can do a Steve Pyramid, even though this is like 70 pounds. This is Due Considerations by John Updike. This is Bob Aspie's The German High Command in World War I. Pulls no punches. No one gets a free ride. Then On Thin Ice by Richard Ellis, who has done a whole shelf of natural history books that are all worth your time and attention. We have Rise and Fight Again. How wonderful, by Charlie Flood. That is great. We have Farley Moett's book, West Viking. It's the author of Never Cry Wolf or A Whale for the Killing. We have The Collected Stories of Eudora Welty in this classic old hardcover that someone has lovingly installed with critics, with the reviews from the Times and essays and stuff from the Times. Wonderful. Wonderful to have this and follow in that person's footsteps. Just wonderful. Then, this is a little ratty. It's not in as good a condition as all the rest of these things, but I'll do what I can for it. Recollections of Full Years by Mrs. Taft. Wonderful to have this again. Then The Defeat of Imperial Germany as part of this John Eisenhower series. We have Death of a Nation, about Gettysburg and Lee at Gettysburg. We have The Last Days of Hitler by Hugh Trevor Roper. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, my God. Okay. 70 pounds is a little too much. And then mass market paperbacks. Let's not forget them. We have 2 mass market paperbacks of Agatha Christie with the cover art that I like. And then all of the Lynn Carter. There was so much more Lynn Carter there. So much more. But Grammaticus Books only has so much of a hold on me. I wasn't about to get all of the Lynn Carter that was there. Oh my God, there was so much of it. But I found 4 that'll do just fine for either Garb August or some other time. Summer's the perfect time for reading Lynn Carter in any case. So there you go. Now, it was a Brattle book haul that I did not plan to make. Now, this time, I dadgum mean it. I am not going to the Brattle Bookshop again until next week. For sure. No matter how much the rest of you bully little old me, I am not going back until next week. At the very earliest. I don't need to go back at all. I'm not going back until next week. I hope that's clear. Anyway, that was a Brattle haul for you. Good Lord. How did I get these things back here? I will never know. But I did, and I'm going to have fun diving into them. A couple of these things are going to go on the list for tonight. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.